But first, I can't help it. Greens leader and federal member for the inner suburbs of Melbourne today stood up and delivered a speech to the National Press Club that was highly delusional and an insult to every Australian. Adam Bandt, in his self-described egotistical guise of somehow being Australia's version of Robin Hood, has laid out an attack on profitable multinational Australian companies that he claims are ripping off ordinary Australians. He includes the big four banks, the Commonwealth Bank, our biggest company, ANZ, the NAB and Westpac. He includes Wesfarmers, which of course runs the very popular Bunnings. He threw in Telstra, Woolworths, Coles, JB Hi-Fi and even Ampol. Now, Adam Bandt wants to hit these companies and others he calls it a plan to, his words, hit the rich. He also promises to bring in a coal and mining tax, demonises gas today and says this will raise $541 billion, a figure plucked out of nowhere, and that will be his price for supporting Labor in the event of a hung parliament.
Enough is enough. It's time to make the big corporations and billionaires pay their fair share of tax. This election, the Greens will propose a package of Robin Hood reforms. The first component is targeted at big corporations who are making excessive profits, beyond a normal return to shareholders. It will apply to companies with an annual turnover of over $100 million, taxing the excess profits that these companies make. This new big corporations tax would apply to both Australian corporations and multinational corporations operating in Australia. Over the next decade, this component of the tax is expected to raise $296 billion.
What a joke this bloke is. Now, let's state the bleeding obvious and then turn our attention to what the Greens under Adam Bandt actually stand for. Robin Hood Adam is about as likely to have anyone agree to any of this as he has living out his warped dream of being the Australian version of Robin Hood. None of any of this, by the way, is new. I wrote a column back in July about this when he first outlined this craziness aimed at peeling off Labor voters that lean heavily left in inner suburbs of the capital cities of Australia. Now, Bandt's grasp of economics is about as sharp as someone wandering around Sherwood Forest back in the 14th century. When you look at the corporations whose profits he describes as excessive and who would attract this new 40% tax that he calls a big corporations tax, great imagination with the name, by the way, one thing stands out. Every Australian with a superannuation fund earns dividends from all of those companies, especially the banks. So Adam Bandt would be taking from the rich and also taking from the middle class, the working class and the working class poor. I'm not sure Bandt, with his taxpayer-funded super, actually understands superannuation and how it works.
While people went backwards, the biggest 500 corporations made $98 billion in crisis profits off the back of the pandemic. Woolworths, Hancock Prospecting and NAB alone reaped billions of dollars in crisis profits. Coles and Woolworths have both increased their profits too.
Now, incredibly to me, the ABC representative at the Press Club lunch today, interestingly sponsored, by the way, with a sign at the back of Bandt by Westpac, one of the banks Bandt wants to hit, the ABC reporter made the point that if all these corporations, especially the mining companies, are to be hit with massive new profits taxes, they will simply up and move offshore.
The Parliamentary Budget Office, who you engage to do your costings on the corporate tax issue, warns that the numbers you think you'll raise was, basically a happy guess at best, because there's a lot of uncertainty around the assumptions. One of the reasons would be that global capital is incredibly mobile. Copper is available from Peru, LNG is available from Russia and Qatar, and iron ore from Africa and Brazil. What makes you so certain you'll have a resources industry to support the welfare spending you envisage?
Well, our tax is designed to still encourage investment. We're talking about excessive profits that can still come here and make a return, we're talking about these obscene profits that they're making. Like what we're saying with the gas industry, for example, is that when there was the Russian invasion of Ukraine and it sent the price sky high, they made billions in windfall profits.
Even the ABC doesn't buy it. Now, as I said at the start tonight, a minority Labor government dealing with this bloke and having anything to do with the Greens, having to implement this fantasy world where evil rich corporations need to be flogged because they're profitable and monies can flow to fix everyone's teeth and build houses. It's madness. At the same time, Robin Hood refuses to accept immigration's got anything to do with the housing crisis. The Middle East war, started by a terrorist attack on Israel, can be solved by everyone being nice to each other, and that the corrupt CFMEU is somehow going to fix itself. Bandt presents, to me, like some uni student living in a share house, riding a bike to lectures, with a rainbow view of the world where money comes off a tree, and if we all get together in some kumbaya world, everybody wins, no poverty, no international conflicts, sun and wind power the wide brown land. He is so naive.